What's up, beautiful people, to another episode of the Pursuit of Destiny podcast. It's me, Rickey Jones Jr., and we also have a guest today. But before I introduce him, all that good stuff, for those that are new to the podcast, this podcast is here to help you to live your best life and give you the keys and the tools and even some tricks on how to do so, from your personal life to your spiritual growth to marriage to business, or whatever components will help you to live life well. We are here and we do some interviews, right? We interview people so their life can help you to live your best life. And out of interviewing people and hearing their lives, you're able to get the keys to overcome the things that you may be dealing with, or to see another perspective to what you may come up against, so that the things that come your way do not overcome you, but you're able to overcome them. So my brother, my friend, JT, J Tobin, Javon, Mr. Thompson, daddy, brother, friend, the man with oh so many names, also DJ Red Tober, okay? A producer, a man of many talents, a man with many abilities. I'm gonna try to get her back. My goal is to get her back. I'm reading things, I'm praying, and all those things, to the point of realization that no, this is not gonna be. And now you're saying you were at a point of depression and such.
Right. Yeah. And it spiraled because at this moment, I'm with the kids for majority of the time.
Yeah.
And so imagine just raising
Or
2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and a 4-year-old. Like it was a lot. It was a lot. Taking them to and from daycare, making sure they get changed, fed, it was definitely a lot. And then working at a job that literally is I was working at Geico at the time. No shade to Geico as a organization. I always appreciate them for providing for my family. At the end of the day, they had great benefits. I don't know how it is nowadays, but they had great benefits and incentives to keep you there.
Nice.
But the job itself, I just knew it wasn't me. It wasn't
Gotcha.
me. And it was a customer service job. So I'm on the phone all day. Even with switching positions, it's like, nah, man, like I can feel myself wanting to do more. But because of my current situation and me looking at my finances, is like, I gotta do this for this, and I got these kids, I gotta do what I gotta do. And at the time, which, man, this is crazy how just God makes things happen in terms of like even the interaction I had yesterday. I was talking to the 18-year-old, and I told him about just, being self-sufficient. 'Cause sometimes it can be a good thing, like having that hustle mentality. It can be a great thing, but it can also hinder your relationship with God, because at that point you're no longer trusting on God. You are leaning on your own understanding, where God is saying, no, you're supposed to lean on my understanding. Right? And so during that season of my life, I was drifting away from God, where my attendance at church was every now and then. I went and tried different churches just to see, like, maybe that catch a spark. That didn't do nothing. And so I'm all over the place. I'm literally, and this had to be for a good, I'm gonna say a good two years or so.
Wow. Now let me ask this: even within that time period, did you ever blame God for the separation?
No, I never blame God.
I like that.
And so I would say that goes back to my foundation. Knowing God didn't create the situation.
Yeah.
Like, there were human willpower that created the whole situation. And so I didn't blame God for any of it, but I still felt where I was like, I don't know why I'm still here. Like, this is way too much for me to bear.
Okay.
And as you realize, it's never your cross to bear. Like, it was never your burden to bear. And so what saved me, which this sometimes get me emotional. What really saved me was my brother Sean. He calls me out of the blue. I can remember I can remember this moment because like literally maybe a month prior, we went on a family vacation in Orlando. Fun. It was good time with my parents, my sisters, my niece, my nephew. And so we had a good time with all the kids and everything. It was a good time, but I can tell I wasn't there. Like when I tell you now, when I tell you, your boy made sure he had his green pack with him all the time.
Gotcha. That's where you was at.
I had made sure, and it was like, nah, man. I went out to the little pool area before anybody woke up. After everybody went into bed. I mean, at the time, my parents knew. They didn't like ridicule me or anything like that, but they knew.
Because I mean, it has a scent.
It had to sit right.
And so if you know the scent, then you know what happened.
You know, right? Even though I was very on my, it's a funny transition into this. You know, I'm gonna get back to it, but
this is good.
I'm big on like, you know, you do what you do, but don't be smelling like it. Like there's ways around it, not smelling like it. Like that's probably like one of my biggest pet peeves with a lot of young dudes right now. That hey man, you live your life. I did it too, man. I understand. Whatever. No, just don't allow that to be your crunch. Like people say weed ain't addictive. It depends on how you're using it. If you're using it to solve your problems, then yeah, because you're gonna always have problems.
Problems gonna always occur. Facts.
And so yeah, we had a running joke about like just kids nowadays, which I can say kids now. That's crazy. Make me feel
look at you now.
How they just be loud. I'm like, nah, man, that's not you gotta know how to work it incognito.
Taper that down, playboy.
But I guess that was just my mindset because I was a father of 4 and just like, nah, I'm not gonna let everybody know what I'm doing. But yeah, during that moment, I was heavy on drinking as well. And like I was an alcoholic that by the grace of God, I never had to go take an AA class. Like I didn't have to go through all of that. At the core of it, I was definitely an alcoholic, man. Waking up drinking, going to bed drinking, going to bed smoking. Like it was a lot. Like all of it, I felt just super low. One, because I was so far from the church in my current lifestyle. And this is somebody that's been rooted in the church growing up. I was so far from it that everything just was like, this was the only way to like really piece me out. Of course, and I'm raising kids, toddlers doing toddler things, and being really exhausted from work. So every aspect of my life seemed so out of whack. And so that's how I was doing. I was self-medicating.
And it's cool, right? Because the beautiful thing about God is, to your point of people being church hurt, oftentimes people don't come to God or don't allow for God to be in their lives because they feel like God is going to make them do a bunch of things that they don't want to do, or give them a list of things to make them have a boring life. Well, no, like you're a prime example of how through God, you don't look like what you've been through, or you don't look like what you've been like, right? And the things that you stop doing are because of the realization that, no, this is not what I should be doing. This isn't beneficial to me. It doesn't promote anything positive for my life. And so let me make these changes to better live a life that I'm proud of, that I want my kids to model, that I want others to see. And I would have never known, right? Not that I can tell what everybody's been through in life, but I would have never known, even if it was just a 2-year gap or 2 or 3 year gap, that you may have considered yourself, right? What you did and what you said, and done the things that you've done because of God, the God in you now that has elevated you to the person that you are today, which is a beautiful thing. And even to come out of the separation, to go through the divorce, to be raising these kids, like you said, Tyler's doing Tyler things and so forth and so on, to then be able to be used by God, right? In a sense where I have been around you in a sense where I know that you've sensed a calling, you've sensed a push in a direction. Like, what was that like to just come from the tail end of what you've been through, the
Yeah.
separation from God, the going to different churches thinking that would help you, that would benefit you, to self-medicating, to then getting your life back together, right? Before I get to that question, what was the conversation like with Sean? You said Sean called you. That was a pivotal
Yep.
point to the change. So talk about
Yes.
Paul and then talk about the call from God.
Yeah. So the conversation with Sean was it was interesting because all it consisted of really, he was like, "Hey man, what's up, JT?" He's like, "Look, I know David at the time was our lighting technician, and he was like, David's getting ready to transition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and so we need a lighting tech." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "You gonna are we paying or is this for free?"
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna do it for free, but if we pay, then all right. He's like, no, yeah, no, like, yeah, I'm gonna get you in with the church to
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and pay. So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, cool. I'm gonna just come in. I'm gonna still do what I do. It's only part
Mm-hmm.
time. I mean, I got to be here on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I can't do Wednesdays because I'm on work schedule.
Okay.
Um, and then I started doing it. I mean, lighting was a passion of mine prior
Yeah.
to even getting married. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've always had that in me. So I was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, cool.
And even let me say this because it wasn't said, but to make sure everybody knows, Sean is a member of Revealing Truth, which is the
Yes.
church that JT grew up in. And Sean's making this phone call to JT about coming back to Revealing Truth, again, the church that he grew up in, to do lighting. So just making sure we all had the same
Yes.
story. Boom shakalaka. And so, like you
But
said, it's
yeah,
always been a passion.
yeah. So it has always been a passion. So I was like, all right, cool. I came back. I started doing it. And it's just funny how God works. Like
Yep.
in my mind, I'm only here to just do this so I can collect the check, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. But at the same
Wow.
time, it was God is like imparting in His word, imparting in
Mm-hmm.
just little seeds here and there, to where I think that was 2019. At the end of
Mm-hmm.
2019, which I can remember this day on point because it was,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody would know the day. It's New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, guy hits me like, I want you to quit Geico and I want you to serve under Sean. I'm like,
Mm.
my like, you gotta be crazy. You gotta be crazy. And this was only from I started working in September to
Mm.
December. Like, so it was a short
Mhm.
span of time where
Mhm.
like God was really doing some new things in me, really restoring me. Like I felt like that was my restoration moment.
Nice.
But not knowing that 2019 New Year's Eve, God tells me to quit. Cool. All right, bet. I quit. January comes around. I'm like, ooh, it's getting tough. It's getting real tough. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna start doing other things because I'm gonna try to figure out a way I can be able to still serve Sean
Mhm.
and then be able to still provide for the family.
Mhm.
And then, God really provided. Thankfully, money that I had saved up really helped me, which who would have known that 2020 would have brought a whole pandemic.
Mhm.
And so everything shut down. So even when I was trying to work at places, I kept getting pretty much a door closed in my face, even though I was
Mm.
more than able qualified.
Mm.
One in particular that really like kind of hurt me at first until I understood where God was doing was I was trying to get back at Busch Gardens. Like, it's
Mm.
been a few years or
Mhm.
so. It's been about like 5 or 6 years. I'm still in good with the managers and all that. Like I
Mm.
left on great terms. And then like even when we had the interview, it wasn't even an interview. It was a conversation. We were just talking like, yeah.
Yeah.
So and then I'm gonna make you like this and this way you can have this pay. I'm like, oh, bet. I'm like, man, I got this job. Never
Yep.
heard anything back. I was like, what
Wow.
is happening? But during that moment, during that season where God told me to serve Sean, it was also it was for me to hear serving Sean, but it was really for me to know to serve God again. and to be able to start to trust in God again. And then from there, I think that's where I started to see a shift, because when I was a teen, I did have a desire to work at the church. I did. I had a desire to work at the church. I didn't know in what shape or fashion, but it was always a desire. But then life started lifing, and that desire didn't really. That desire, it was a desire, but it wasn't really a. Ah, man, it was weird. It was a desire, but it wasn't really there. Oh man, thank you God for bringing this back up. Man, it's crazy. Pastor Brian is so phenomenal in his way of working relationships. I remember sitting at one of my closest friends, Daniel George. I remember being in the reception at that wedding. Pastor Brian asks me, "Hey, you still want to work for the church?" This is literally had to be, I'm going to say, at least 4 years prior to me even coming back as a lighting tech. And so like it's just crazy how like God will remind you of those things. And then talking about going into the purpose part and where that led me into my purpose again, Pastor Brian, man, I didn't even remember this until he brought it back up. But I had wrote him back in 2017. Everything was kind of going crazy in regards to my marriage and all that. I told him, I was like, I think I'm called to like to teach.
Wow.
Like this is me after me seeing Pastor Brian step out and him flourish and do what he does. I think I'm like called to teach. It's been something that I've done when I was in youth. Taught a couple sermons in youth. And then he brought that back up like 3 years ago. He's like, you remember back then you said you was called to teach? And then now it's like, what is teaching? Like God is opening my scope of like, what does that even mean? Like,
and hold on, before you jump into that, what does even that mean? Just to even make sure we're all tracking what's been said in the sense of having these relationships when you were younger, coming in contact with the church and birthing out that desire of music and producing, thanks to Pastor Brian starting Sound Right, and even going through life and relationships, right? But then going through life and through your relationship with Daniel, your close friend that you probably met at the church. Pastor Brian then comes there and talks about you working at the church, and then years have gone by, you still having that relationship with Pastor Brian and message him in the midst of your relationship being what it was, and Pastor Brian not being the pastor then. Well, no, yeah, he was coming into it.
He was coming into,
He was coming into being the pastor of the church back then, but you sent in a message. Why? Because you already had the relationship that was built back then, thanks to your parents joining the church that kept youth in mind. So you just been built up and girded up within the great and solid foundation of church, ministry, and relationships. And now, boom, you're here.
And now it's like, okay, I the platform that I might even thought, like, not saying I wanted to, in my mind, I don't even want to be like a pastor or anything like that. I wasn't even thinking about that. I mean, I like teaching, which is very interesting because I don't find myself as a communicator. I'm usually quiet.
Correct. So, like, that is true. That is true.
I don't really find myself as a communicator, but it's like definitely this year has been a journey of just moments of communication. And I think can't remember exactly whether it was 2020 or 2021 where we started to do our night of worships and here at the ministry. And I had moments during those times to be able to speak. And I was like, wow, like, no, God, you literally saying this is what you were called to do. Wow. And then even now being able to mentorship youth or being able to mentorship my team. Typically I'm like the youngest one in most of the teams that I'm in. And so sometimes it can feel intimidating because it's like,
yeah,
what knowledge do I have to give y'all that y'all probably should already know? But it's like, no, man, it's the Holy Spirit working through me.
there it is.
And even to right now where this year I wrote down, I said, this is my life goal. My life goal is to be a light to those that are in the dark. And I said, God,
Wow.
however you see fit to use me and make me a vessel for you to accomplish that, that's all I want. Like, and so now I'm understanding why God has given me so many different gifts. And being able to put me into the places that I am, the gift of being technical, savvy, all of that stuff. Being able to have the gift of communication and teaching. And it's even now to where right now what we're doing at we have an organization here at Revealing Truth Ministries called Creative Collective, where we have multiple different artists from different mediums coming together to create under one message, which that is Jesus. But it's all different types of mediums and all different artists from different types of walks of life. But we're all coming together for that central goal. And on Mondays right now, we've been working on a project. But outside of that, we have moments before we even do our project, before we go off into our sessions, we have worship and moments. And I've been able to talk during those moments. I've just been having creative talks during that moment. And I'm like, dang, God, like you really are showing who you have called me to be in the non-traditional way. Like if I would have said, oh man, I think I want to preach, like the immediate thing is you see me on a pit bull. How you say that? Pulpit. Yep. There it is.
See, it ain't even for you. It ain't for me. That's not even where
me.
your mind's at. That's not even where your mind at. Yeah,
Like you would think, like if you said, oh no, man, I teach the gospel, people would be like, oh, you must be preaching on a stage or something like that. And it's like, no, like that's not even the case. I'm not even it's more than that. It's being able to get to the spaces where a preacher can't. And I think that's really where I've been so far. And it's like, God, you really transformed my life and allowing me to have a testimony that's so authentic that people can gravitate to, that can understand from, knowing that they're not alone. Like a lot of people would be like, oh man, you got divorced? Man, that's crazy. Like there's so many church folk that will ridicule you for getting divorced. But I'm so grateful for our RTM family that not once did I felt bad for my relationship ending because of people. Now I might have felt bad for myself, but it wasn't because of the people that was surrounding me. And I think that God has just really blessed me to be able to just share my moments, my hiccups to now people that are allowed to flourish. I literally told my guy yesterday, I said, man, you're 18. You don't have to have everything figured out. But all I tell you to do in this moment is to get a good relationship with God. He gonna direct everything else. But that is most important as an 18-year-old. Your plans will come. You'll figure stuff out. But get your relationship with God, because that's what's gonna propel you. That's what's gonna take you. That's what's gonna hold you down. When everybody else seems to fail you, that's what's gonna hold you down. Is your relationship with God.
No, that's good. And so even with that, right? Last questions. What would you say is or was the key to you not only hearing what God said, but obeying what God said about your calling?
So I would say it has to be the surroundings that I was in.
Okay.
Being able to actually voice it to somebody else. I know a lot of people want to internalize their purpose, but you have to have people that you are comfortable with, that are allowed to speak on your purpose. Because not everybody is allowed to speak towards your purpose.
Nice.
I feel like we might voice it out to too many people, but you have to thankfully I was able to cultivate a relationship with like a Pastor Brian, to
Mm-hmm.
where when I voiced that, he didn't say, "Oh, nah, I don't see that."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or I was also able to give the platforms to be able to do so with a Pastor
Mm-hmm.
T, where
Mm-hmm.
I was able to discover it at a young age. Thankfully, I was able to discover me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's listening. I think listening is obviously just one half of it. It is that do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's understanding timing. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the other part where the do is important. It's
Mm-hmm.
not saying that you don't have a plan in motion. Um, Even with me just teaching at the surface level of saying, "Oh, I think I want to teach." I never actually had an opportunity to teach outside of like youth until like 2020. Like that's 3 years after I told Pastor Brian I wanted to teach. It was
Mm-hmm.
3 years later where I was able to teach virtually to our youth, to our
Yep.
actual youth group.
Yep.
But in the meantime, I was still doing work, which was I
Mm.
was still studying. I was even what was crazy. This is gonna sound crazy. Some Christians might ridicule me, whatever. Man, even in my most high moments
Mm-hmm.
or intoxicated moments, I would
Mm-hmm.
still find myself reading the Bible.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Like
No, it's not far fetched. I've done it too. I've been there, done that too, especially after drinking a couple drinks.
it is like, nah, man, I'm just
I've
trying to
been
get
there.
deeper. Like,
Correct. It just because it's what's in you.
yeah,
Even in the midst of what you're doing, what's in you is gonna come out. And coming
yeah.
into the word, that's what was in you.
And so I think preparation, which I've heard this a million times, which I find very true. Preparation meets opportunity. Like
Mm,
you got to prepare
nice,
before the
nice.
opportunity comes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to. I got notes of just sermon titles or sermon thoughts or just random things that God would just part in me. And it's like, okay, in this season of prepping, that's what I'm doing. And now I'm able to get into a season of opportunity. And it's
Mm,
even growing from there. And it's understanding your preparation season for your
yeah.
purpose, and then the opportunity will come. And I think
Mm,
it's acting on the preparation season. That's
nice.
where your obedience come in. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You said I need to prepare. You told me I need to be a fashion designer. I need to take over the fashion world. Well, it may not be. God is saying the first thing he gonna have the opportunity for you to do is to be in a fashion show, LA
Mm-hmm.
Times, like
Yeah.
showing big lights. Oh no, it may be. I need you to go here at this boutique. I need you to
Mm-hmm.
work under this boutique
Mm-hmm.
because I need you to learn in this season. And
Mm-hmm.
it's being okay with taking that opportunity in your season of preparation
Mm.
before you actually be able to do everything that God has called you to do.
Mm, that's good. That's good. I love that. And even for the people that might have or may have find themselves like you talked about, in the midst of your divorce, you did not or you weren't around people who were condemning you. However, there were moments where you may have self-condemned yourself. How would you help them to overcome that self-condemnation that may come on due to the different things that they might have found themselves doing?
So for me, I looked into um literally I had to reflect myself as God sees. Like that was the only way.
Nice.
I won't even sugarcoat. I wish I can give like an elaborate, full
Mm-hmm.
on like
Oh, that's
this.
good.
These are the steps. Honestly, the only way you're gonna truly value yourself is if you see the value that God has for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started looking at that's how I look. The first message that I taught after going through all of that, the
Yeah.
first message I taught to the youth was flawed but chosen.
Wow.
And it's understanding the flaws that God that we have as humans, that we're gonna make mistakes, but it doesn't separate us from the right standing that God has called us to be, which is
Mm,
righteous. We are righteous. If you're a believer, you are righteous and you are in right
mm,
standing with God, and He has called you for a purpose. You don't
mm,
know, you don't know when that time is going to be where you need to walk out what you need to walk out, but don't allow your flaws to dictate your actions to be able to
mm,
walk out. And man, if I'm gonna pull out just a part of that because I
Okay.
felt like it was for me. It was for me. I
Nice.
was able to talk to them, but it was for me. Um
Mm,
and let's see where it was just man. Um one thing God told me is that we have to have a purposeful mind. You should be
mm,
thinking and operating based on your purpose and not on your abilities. And so
mm,
it's for me, it's I'm not the communicator. I am the
mm,
introvert.
mm,
I am the quiet one. And it's like, God, how are you calling me to talk to people when I
mm-hmm,
don't naturally talk to people? And he's like, God, it's
mm,
because if you're acting out of your natural, they won't be able to see my glory because it's through your flaws that I'm able to reflect my glory. Like
mm,
it's taking your flaws and like, oh man, he can actually do this. Nah, I can't, but because of God, I can. And it's
mm.
through those flaws. So embrace your flaws, embrace those imperfections that you have,
Yeah.
embrace the moments where you felt like you slipped up or whatever. God can use that. He is going to use that. He's going to use that
Mm,
to access. He said, if you take a look into the Bible and a lot of the predominant people that we look at, like for
yeah.
me, David, I felt so close to David,
Okay.
because for me, I grew up in a church, so I felt like I had the heart, of David,
Okay.
but just like David made a lot of mistakes, God
Very
still
true.
used them after each mistake. God still used them,
Mm,
and David was, I would say, humble enough. And I think this is
mm,
the part you got to be humble enough to admit your flaws, admit
mm,
and allow God to work through it.
mm-hmm.
Um, because our flaws, this is what I wrote. Your flaw doesn't disqualify you; they actually qualify you even more because they are the portals through which through God's power, love and grace can spread across your life and put Him on display. So
Wow.
it's through the portal. Like in my mind,
Nice.
it's like in Bombay, like that scene on Endgame where everybody was just coming
Uh,
through. Uh, that's how I see God's.
mm,
That's how I see the portals of like this is the flaws that we have, but God's
yeah.
love is still reigning. His power is still reigning. He still will be able to
Mm,
do the things, and our goal is to be able to win souls for others. And it's like
mm,
embracing your flaws and not putting so much condemnation on yourself is only
nice.
going to help you be able to tell your story even more. And it's a story of victory. Know
Yeah.
that your story ends with victory.
Wow.
And that's the most important part. Is like
Mm,
you don't have a story of this is the end.
mm-hmm.
If you still breathing, it's not the end.
It's not
It's
the end.
it's not the end. And so you have a
Mm,
story of victory. God has promised us victory to each and every one of us if we believe.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's our part to allow what we go through to allow others to see that.
Mm,
Don't hold it in. Don't hold it in. Embrace it.
mm.
Embrace it.
Wow, wow. That's good. That's good. And even my last point was there any encouraging words that you would have for anybody? However, you've been dropping encouraging gems, encouraging keys throughout this here podcast. But I mean, I'm gonna still ask the question because it is written down. But is there anything else that wasn't touched on that maybe you believe during this talk that you feel like, man, I want to make sure somebody is encouraged in this space, or I want to make sure somebody really gets this point or really has an understanding of what I meant or what I said about a thing that will help them to live their life better?
Yeah, I would say don't don't be don't limit God
Mm,
on what your purpose is.
okay.
And what I mean by that is don't make it so one directional. Where if you say my purpose is to be in fashion or to be exactly a fashion designer, at that point you're limiting God on what He can do. Be an
Mm,
open vessel. Be an
yeah.
open vessel.
Mm,
Um, He may allow to use that gift, and that's a good one.
Mm.
Don't don't confuse your gifts for your purpose.
Nice.
While
Nice.
I have my gifts of being a great technical person, I have my gift of music. I have my gift of just being an encourager. My purpose is to shine light to those that are in the dark. Like that is my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to allow him to use my gifts to be able to fulfill that purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
so don't be so one dimensional. Don't think that you only have one gift. That's been the thing that God has been putting in my heart, is that God is a multifaceted God.
Mm-hmm.
That means he has made us, if we are made in his image, he has made
Yep.
us multifaceted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that means he can use you in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
Only way you're going to discover the multiple ways is to get close to him.
Well said. Well said. Well said. Well done, kind sir. And so the funny thing is, though we talked through his life, we didn't even talk about all the components of his life, from
Yeah.
him being a DJ and when that started, and him even working at Busch Gardens, which he did before, not even talk about what he did there. However, the
Yeah.
things that we did talk about, I believe, will be informative and beneficial for those that listen and truly hear what he did say, truly
Yeah.
hear what was said. And you may have to go back, right? Go back and hear what he did say, because it's all impactful and built on each other. That was the beautiful thing about it. It built on itself to recognize how the foundation of life, the foundation of
Mhm.
your journey, will be what is seen as your journey is continued. And so the beautiful thing about JT is he started on the foundation of a church family that
Yep.
was heavily impacted on the youth. And through that, relationships were built. Through that, experiences were had. Through that, a spouse was found, children were born. And even beyond that, he's still there at that same church, right?
Same
With
church.
those same people, though church members come and go. However, the core is still around, in a sense where he's able to now be a beacon of light in the midst of darkness, speaking first to the youth group, whom he was a
Yeah.
youth when he was at the church. So it's just full circle in
Full
that
circle.
respect. And even now doing music at the church and so many different things, right? But all that to say, thank you, JT, for sharing your story. And even being a light for those who will come in contact with your journey, with your story. But then even beyond this, will come in contact with you, right? And in the midst of what RTM is doing through Creative Collective, and just being with the creatives in the Tampa Bay area first, and then
Yes.
beyond, like, get in contact with them. Speaking of, how do people get in contact with you to either come in contact with your music, your social media, the groups that you're leading and that you're a part of? What are the ways that they can get in contact with you?
I would say the best thing is hit me on Instagram.
Okay.
I definitely I will respond on
Okay.
Instagram.
Okay.
It's Redtober. That's my
There it is.
producer DJ name, Redtober.
Boom. It'll be in the
Um
description.
and okay, perfect. Then I don't have to even
Uh-huh.
spell it out, but I'll spell it out. It's REDDTOBER. There it is.
Boom.
Two D's. Make sure you put respect on it.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, hit me up on Instagram. That's actually my handle for everything.
Mm,
I don't know if I should call it Twitter, if I call it X. I don't know what that is
right. We're
anymore.
still working on it. He's
Threads.
working on it.
I don't
We're
I don't
working
know if
on it.
Threads even have an instant. I don't know. That's why I said Instagram. Instagram
Hmm.
has been faithful.
There it is. There it is. And continuous in all it's doing. No, I love that. And last question. I'm asking this question. 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where do you believe you will be in life?
Oh man. Well, this has to be one of the hardest questions I ever have to answer.
Mm,
Which is so funny. I literally told the guy yesterday that I was speaking to. I said I can never really truly answer a 5 or 10 year plan,
mm,
because the season I'm in with my life right now is I'm literally leaning in on God to
there it
show
is.
me the next. Like,
I
I have
love
no
that.
plans, because when I did plan, I'm looking at 5 years from now. right now, and I'm like, this is not what I had planned.
There it is.
So clearly my plans ain't sufficient.
I love it.
I'm literally in a season where I'm like, God, show me. And so I'm excited to see my children 5-10 years from now.
Yes.
That's gonna be fun.
Yes.
That is definitely gonna be fun. I can answer that.
Love it.
You know, my son 5 years from now will be a 15-year-old.
Trying to get a permit.
My girl, right? Trying to get a permit. So that's gonna be fun. The one thing I do see, spouse.
Nice.
I dropped that in there.
That's beautiful. We heard it. We ain't even talking about that. You know what I'm saying? We ain't talking about that, but that's nice.
Might be watching.
Oh, I love that. No, that's dope. That's dope, man. I love that answer. And I believe that the authenticity of that answer was shown through what you said. So beautiful. There's no right or wrong answer to it. However, what we will get the ability to do is 5 to 10 years from now, after hearing this episode, is to be able to see where is JT in 2028 and how has God continued to use him from being that person that will shine light in the midst of darkness, or be a light for people that may find themselves in a dark space in a place. So again, thank you, kind sir, for all that are tuning in. Make sure y'all lock in, stay tuned in, because other interviews such as this will be on this here podcast to not only show you a beacon of light, but also show how whatever you're going through, you can overcome it, you can get through it, and there is victory on the end, just as JT said. So until next time, great people, I love you all. Peace. Da-da-da.